illegal for us to let a person suffer, but if we were to let an animal suffer, that'd be considered cruel and inhumane. Today I will be discussing the right to die with dignity. Physician-assisted suicide should be a legal option for the terminally ill. Being given the right to choose when to die should be a fundamental freedom for everybody. Terminal illness could affect any one of us at any given time. It could be a family member, a coworker, a friend, or even ourselves. Imagine being diagnosed with a terminal illness and the physician has just told you that there's no treatment or no chance of survival. I have personally worked as an LPN in a long-term care facility for the last 5 years and have personally witnessed the pain and suffering that can affect a patient at the end of life. I have seen patients with their family at their sides praying for death to come. Today I will discuss what physician-assisted suicide is. I will also explain why I believe that it should be legalized in all states. And finally, I will discuss how we can support in getting the Death with Dignity Act. So let me explain by giving the definition for physician-assisted suicide and terminal illness. Physician-assisted suicide, according to Washington State Department of Health at washington.gov, is the practice in which a physician will provide a terminally ill patient with a lethal dose of medication upon that patient's request, in which the patient intends to voluntarily end his or her life. And according to the article, Patient's Choice and Control at the End of Life at vermont.gov, it is the patient whom of their free will has decided to end their life with dignity instead of agonizing pain. So what exactly is a terminal illness? A terminal illness is a disease that cannot be cured or adequately treated and reasonably expected to result in death of the patient, typically as short as 6 months. So how many people die from terminal illness each year? Well, according to the American Cancer Society, about 1.2 million new cases are diagnosed each year in the U.S., which is second to heart disease. And 500,000 Americans will die this year. That averages out to about 1,500 people a day. So some of the symptoms that a patient with terminal illness might experience could be pain, agitation, distress, respiratory tract increased secretions, also known as noisy rattle or death rattle, distress or difficulty breathing, nausea, vomiting, and breathlessness. So how costly is it? Well, the medication typically prescribed through the Death with Dignity Act for physician-assisted suicide can cost up to $1,000. Though insurance may not cover the cost, Compassion and Choice.org and deathwithdignity.org can help. So what states have the Death with Dignity law now? Currently, Washington, Oregon, and Vermont are the only 3 states that have the Death with Dignity law, which allow mentally competent, terminally ill adults that are residents of that state to voluntarily request and receive the prescribed medication to aid in their death. So what can we do? So what are some of the requirements? You must be at least 18 years of age, a resident of that state, capable of communicating your health decision, and diagnosed with a terminal illness that will lead to death within 6 months, and have 2 physicians determine whether the criteria has been met. So how does this violate our rights, not having this law in Missouri? It is a primary component of our human freedom. We have the right to choose how we live. Shouldn't we have the right to choose how we die? The lack of Death with Dignity law takes our right to choose away from all of us. Banning physician-assisted suicide is a violation of our constitutional rights. We all can support the right to choose. You can go to make a pledge to Death with Dignity National Center, which is dedicated to helping pass new Death with Dignity laws and provide education and outreach programs for the vitality of the Death with Dignity movement. You can also add your name and tell Congress to give the terminally ill the right to death with dignity. People think that I'm just one person. What can I really do? we do have the power to change the current laws. So I'm going to discuss how our support can change these laws, but before I do, I want to share the story of Brittany Maynard, who's a 29-year-old beautiful lady who was diagnosed with stage 4 malignant brain tumor. She helped raise awareness for Death with Dignity laws, and on October 26, Brittany Maynard stated, "There is not a cell in my body that is suicidal or wants to die. I want to live. I wish there was a cure for my disease, but there is not. My brain tumor is going to kill me, and that is out of my control. I have discussed with many experts how I would die from it, and it is a terrible, terrible way to die. Being able to choose to go with dignity is less terrifying. Right now, it's a choice that only is available to some Americans, which is really unethical. The amount of sacrifice and change my family had to go through in order to get me legal access to Death with Dignity, changing my residency from California to Oregon, establishing a team of doctors, having a place to live was profound. There are a ton of Americans who don't have the time or the ability or the finances to move to a legal state. I don't think that is right or fair. I believe the choice is ethical, and what makes it ethical is that it's a choice. The patient can change their mind right up to the last minute. I feel very protected in Oregon." And on November 1st of 2014, Brittany Maynard made the decision to take the lethal dose of medication that was prescribed to her to end her life in dignity. So when you make a donation to Death with Dignity National Center, you are making the difference in the life of the terminally ill. And when you go to write Congress, you're investing in our civil liberties. Our constitutional rights are not being upheld, and if we as a society do not support this bill to be passed into law, our rights will be continued to be violated. The knowledge that the option would be available to a person who is terminally ill can alleviate mental suffering and provide mental comfort. Without our support, the other 47 states may never know the freedom of being able to make that decision for themselves. So let me review what I've kind of discussed today. Making a donation is quick and simple by going to deathwithdignity.org. Making a donation will help the Death with Dignity National Center with their ability to continue their work for passing of the new laws for Death with Dignity. Also, you can go to compassionandchoice.org and tell Congress to support the Death with Dignity. Let's bring attention to the mentally competent adults who have been diagnosed with a terminal illness and want the right to choose to end their life in a humane, dignified manner. I have covered what physician-assisted suicide is, and why you should donate, and why you should write to Congress, and how you can make a difference. Remember, it is not possible to make change without all of our support. And according to Compassion and Choice, when we deny this right, we force these terminally ill patients to suffer through their final days when all hope is gone. Shouldn't we be allowed to make these choices through the guaranteed right that the Constitution has given us? Thank you.